Hi everybody, I'm Kirsty from Women and Waves, and this is our guide to surf forecasting using Surfline. In this video, we're going to give you all the information that you need to put the information from Surfline into a real-world context for the beaches that you're surfing and for the types of waves that you want to surf. Surfline is a really amazing and helpful tool. It has loads of useful things like swell charts, live updates, webcams and forecasting, and we really recommend getting stuck in and getting used to using it because we reckon it's the best one. The forecasting section on Surfline has loads and loads of really useful information. The scale that they use to judge the surf is a colour code from red to blue or from very poor to epic, and this is the first thing that we're going to talk about. So you're probably wondering how Surfline decides what is a very good or epic wave and what is a poor wave. Now, Surfline thinks that if there is large swell, large period and light offshore winds, that will make a really good or an epic wave. However, we know that surfing is a completely subjective experience. So what I think is a very good wave will be very different to what you think is a very good wave, and it's different for every single surfer. So it's subjective to the surfer, but it's also subjective to the beach that you might be surfing. Some beaches might be way more suited to smaller periods and smaller swells, and this is information that Surfline doesn't take into account when it's making these ratings. Furthermore, as we said, Surfline looks for light offshore winds. However, some beaches might work really well with a light onshore wind. And sometimes, if it's a really sheltered beach in a nice little cove, for example, strong offshore winds might also be appropriate. So the bottom line is, it's very subjective to the location, the day, and the surfer. So using a scale from very poor to epic can be quite misleading, and you might miss out on an amazing surf for you. The first thing to figure out is what size waves do you feel comfortable surfing in? Maybe it's knee high, maybe it's waist high. You just need to figure out what is the biggest size that you feel comfortable getting in on. Maybe it's just slightly overhead. The important thing is that you know what waves work for you. So if you look on the forecasting chart on Surfline, you'll see that down the side there are a scale of numbers which describe the predicted wave height on the beach. So they'll be described in feet from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4 for example. And we now need to figure out how this scale translates to the waves that we're actually going to be surfing. So the scale that Surfline uses to put these measurements into context is that 1 foot is ankle high, 2 foot is knee high, and 3 foot is waist high. However, from our experience surfing in Newquay, for example, we know that 2 to 3 foot is actually not knee to waist high, it's actually more like shoulder to head high. So for you to find out how it translates to the beach that you're surfing, we recommend looking on the webcams and going down to the beach and then seeing how that translates to the numbers displayed on Surfline. So we know this information for around Newquay because of our years of surfing here and translating it through Surfline. So we now know that what we're looking for a beginner progressor surfer is from 1 foot to 4 foot, because we know that that's going to range from around knee high to just over head high. So now that you've figured out how those wave height numbers translate to the waves you're actually going to be surfing, you can go through Surfline and pick out the days that are going to be appropriate size for you. So for us, we're going to look through and pick out the days that are going to be between 1 and 4 foot and ignore the ones that are anything bigger than that, because we know that they're not going to be the appropriate size for our progressor intermediate surfers. So the next piece of the puzzle for us to think about is the wind. Now, generally speaking, for most beaches, we're looking for a light offshore wind, because this holds the face of the waves up, makes them nice and clean, but it doesn't affect you on the board. But this doesn't mean that you should discard any day that there is an onshore or cross-shore wind. Some beaches work really well when there's light onshore winds, and a bonus of this is that lots of people will see onshore and not go surfing, so you will have way less people in the water to contend with. Furthermore, Surfline will sometimes grade strong or medium offshore winds down because they can be more difficult to surf in. However, if the beach that you're surfing at is sheltered by cliffs or headlands, then these landforms will protect the waves from this offshore wind, giving you beautiful surf. The main thing is that you develop an understanding of which wind directions and speeds work well for your beach to give you the waves that you want to surf. So, for example, looking at the surf forecast for this day, it's forecast to be 2 to 3 foot, but with really strong offshore winds, and Surfline has graded it as poor or poor to fair. So I'm thinking, I know a really lovely spot near Newquay that is nice and sheltered at high tide, where the waves are going to be perfect for me in these conditions, and I might even have an epic surf. So our advice to you for now is to forget the colour grades, forget the ratings, and just look at the predicted wave height and the wind and really get to know your beach. So now we've figured out what size of wave works for us and what wind speed and direction works for us. So it's now just about getting in there and going surfing and getting used to those conditions. Now, you might find that you go surfing, for example, on a 2 to 3 foot day with nice wind, and you will have an amazing surf. Then you might find that you go surfing on a 2 to 3 foot day with nice wind and you have a really bad surf. So it's now figuring out which other factors are contributing here that are dictating whether you have a good surf or a bad surf. So the main two factors that are going to be affecting the waves in these different ways are swell direction and wave period. So you now need to figure out which combination of those gives you the perfect sweet spot at your beach for you. Every beach will have an ideal swell direction, but it's about figuring out which swell direction makes the perfect waves on your beach for you. So the best way to keep track of all of this information is to keep a surf log. And you can do this in whatever way works for you. You can take notes in your notepad, you can go down to the beach, take photos of the waves, take screenshots of the webcams, and take note or screenshot of the Surfline forecast for that day, and just gradually begin to build up a bank of information on how all of these factors contribute to making the perfect wave for you. The last thing for you to take into account here is the tide, and all you need to do is just know at what stage of the tide your break works at. You can find this out by going and surfing at various stages of the tide or by reading books or reading up online. So we really hope you found all this information useful, and we hope that you go out for a surf on a day that Surfline says it's poor and you have a great time. Please let us know how you got on in the comment section below, and please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
From everything I knew, like golden leaves, when it's their time to fall.